Andrew Lawton was there on the streets, and he's got the pepper spray scars to prove it, courtesy of the useless Ottawa coppers, and he's now written a book about it, which is out tomorrow, The Freedom Convoy, the inside story of 3 weeks that shook the world. Andrew, you were there with the truckers on the streets. What was the atmosphere like in Ottawa with the truckers while you were there?
You know, from the moment they got there, it was just a party. I mean, everyone saw the bouncy castles and the hot tubs and the saunas and the pig roast, but that didn't just come later on. It was like that from the moment I got there. I mean, the most notable example of this, when I got to my hotel the first day, it was the night before the convoy officially arrived, and the mask mandate, which had been in place in Ontario and Ottawa and much of Canada for at least, a year and a half at that point, was just gone because people simply weren't complying. And at a certain point, the hotel staff decided to abandon the mask mandate as well. So really, these people were living the life that the government had taken away from them for the last 2 years, and they were just having a good time with it.
Yeah, and let's not forget that this all arose when truckers who've kept what passes for normality going were told that in order to cross the US-Canadian border, they'd have to show proof of vaccination status. So it was one of those vaccine mandates. They had a tremendous impact. Within days, the useless squish who leads the purportedly Conservative Party in Canada had gone. I can't even remember that loser's name. And various provinces, Alberta and Quebec, abandoned all their COVID regimes virtually overnight. Why do you think they tried it in the United States and it never quite got going? They tried a little bit of it in Europe and Australia too, but it never quite worked. Why do you think it worked in Canada but not elsewhere?
I think in Canada, you had a lot more support that had been built up for quote unquote essential workers throughout the pandemic. And I mean, even from Justin Trudeau earlier on, he had given that tweet about how we should all thank a trucker because they're the ones that are driving the bananas across the border, driving diapers across the border. They're driving auto parts. They're the ones that kept going when the rest of us were locked down. So all of us as Canadians were told that these were our heroes. And I think that worked against the government in a way, because when the government turns around and puts this punitive vaccine mandate in place, which, by the way, is still in place now, they never relented on that. Canadians, even who aren't particularly political, let alone libertarian, were saying, but hang on, I thought these were the heroes of the pandemic. I thought these were the ones that we were supposed to bend over backwards to thank for keeping going. And I think that was a big part of the story in Canada. And it's not to say that other countries didn't have a similar support level for essential workers, but in Canada, it was really driven home.
When we're looking now at photos of the cops, and they're all there in the full RoboCop, I mean, they look like stormtroopers. They're not like the Mounties who were at the Platinum Jubilee observances at Windsor Castle the other day. These are hardcore, serious coppers. Trudeau invoked the emergencies, the so-called Emergencies Act, and he briefly turned parts of Canada, at least, into a dictatorship.
Yes, and these police officers that we saw unmarked, you couldn't even tell which force a lot of them came from because they were importing police officers from all over the country, from across the river in Quebec, from cities across Ontario, and they were completely anonymized in how they were, which I think for a lot of them was probably to their credit, because I know privately a lot of police officers were supporting the convoy, and some have actually been reprimanded for saying as much publicly. But it was quite chilling that all of a sudden this government that says we're respecting your right to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, was threatening people with arrest for daring to walk down the street, even if you weren't protesting. At a certain point, when they had invoked that Emergencies Act, if you were walking down the street in Ottawa, you could be stopped by police, you could be harassed, and you could be arrested. And I wasn't arrested, but I was threatened with arrest if I didn't prove something that had a reason to be there in the officer's opinion. And this is what literally became of this Canada that is supposedly one of the freest places on earth.
Yeah, I don't kind of buy that anymore. I mean, we've all learnt a lot. I mean, it's been a depressing time for those of us who believe in the Westminster system. Essentially, Trudeau made it illegal for unvaccinated people to take a train from Montreal to Toronto. There are UK citizens who have been trapped in Canada and are being prevented from leaving Canada because they don't have enough shots in their arm to satisfy the guy. So basically, there's along the 49th parallel, there's basically a big maple curtain, not an iron curtain, but it's a little softer than that. But there's basically a big maple curtain. He's not giving up on this, is he?
No, I mean, the illegal immigrants can walk across the border into Quebec. They're fine. Ukrainian refugees can be unvaccinated, but someone from the United States, someone from the United Kingdom, someone from Australia that wants to go into Canada cannot go in unless they're vaccinated. And last week, the government said it was going to suspend the vaccine mandate to board a domestic plane. So in Canada, up until Monday, actually, of this week, you needed to be vaccinated to get on a plane or get on a train. They've suspended that, but at the same press conference, they said it's because they're in the process of transitioning to a new definition of fully vaccinated. So before long, even the two-dosers won't be allowed to get on planes, potentially.